Uh, that was loud. Okay, so here is the story, Jorge. I really would hope. I hope you will tell also is about your nickname, Super Macho, and how
Yeah.
that. I just think that's such a powerful mantra. So,
All right. So I had the nickname Super Macho for a long time, and it was I must have been 6 years old, and I sat down with my grandfather. This is in Mexico City, and he put 2 shots of tequila, and I was really excited because I didn't know what that was. And he said, "Jorge, it's time for you to learn the meaning of life." So I was really excited, and he said, "Jorge, or Jorgito, there's 2 types of men in Mexico. There's the machos, and then there's the super machos." And I got really excited. And I felt like my lip was trembling and my mustache was starting to grow at 6 years old. And I said, "What, grandfather, what is the difference?" And he said, the macho, he fights everybody. But the super macho, he's so macho. He actually doesn't fight anyone. He controls himself. I was like, "Whoa, that sounds," it was like Mexican Zen, right? And he goes, the macho is cheats on his girlfriend, cheats on his wife. He's very unfaithful. But the super macho is faithful till the end. He said, "Jorge, in life, those are the 2 choices you have. To be macho or to be super macho." Said, "Grandfather, are you super macho?" And he looked at me for what felt like a minute and he said, "No." And then he took 2 shots of tequila and he drank both of them. And he said, "But you can be, because you're just starting on your journey. And in life, there will be 2 paths: the path that everybody takes and the path that is difficult, that most people don't want to take. The path that might kill you, it will challenge you and it will test you. And guess what happens, Jorge? If you go on that path, you just get better and you get stronger. So always ask yourself, what's the obvious easy thing? And what's the hard thing that will make me better?" And that is being super macho.
I
And so
love that.
that stayed with me at 6 years old. It really, it came down to for a long time, every decision I would make, I would go, "Well, what's the obvious one? All right, what's the really hard?" Even meeting Sandra, right? When I met her, I was like, "Oh, that girl's really pretty. You know what? I'm gonna go for it. The easy thing would be to be shy and
You're not shy, man.
well,
You were never shy.
but just so you guys know, and especially everybody who's young in high school,
Super shy.
we met in high school at a punk rock concert, and I proposed 2 weeks after we met.
Oh,
I just knew. This was the girl of my dreams and the girl of, like, I basically saw the future, and she said no because she's very smart. But definitely that formed us. I grew up in Mexico City.
Mhm.
Sandra grew up in Tijuana,
Tijuana,
in the
yeah.
border with San Diego.
You moved up from Mexico City at what age?
I moved up when I was 9 years old.
Yeah,
And then what a lot of middle class Mexican kids do is their parents send them to go to school in the U.S.
Yeah, Jorge and my
So we
parents.
both had to cross the border
Every day.
So we got to live in 2 countries at all times, and we got to sort of experience being Mexican,
Yeah.
and then being a foreigner every day. It was
Yeah.
kind of an amazing experience.
But the interesting thing is that since Jorge came from Mexico City and the further south you go, the more submerged you are in the culture. And when you grow up in a border town like Tijuana, you are instantly submerged in both worlds. Like Jorge said, like I grew up with Popeye and Tom and Jerry and like Eggo waffles and like Saturday morning cartoons and all that stuff that they were getting in San Diego. We were getting it too. Jorge grew up with like Mazinger Z and like weird,
like all this stuff
considered weird cartoons for the time.
Yeah,
Right.
and like rooster fights and Mexican wrestling. Like I was seeing
Yeah.
different stuff.
Yeah. So when by the time he moved up, he began to have that sprinkling of being a border child as well.
And so we both love drawing ever since we were little kids,
That was the
like a
common-
lot of you guys. For a lot of us, especially our parents, would say, you guys should study graphic design. That was what we were told, because being an artist just seemed like a very risky career for people like us.
Yeah.
And definitely graphic design seemed like, well, that's more stable.
My dad didn't know any better. Like, he was like, okay, you know, my child, like, I come from a family of 4 girls. I'm the third one. And my older sisters went into medicine. And my dad, like, related to that because he was a doctor. He was a surgeon and a doctor. And he was like, I can mentor. I understand this language. And when it came to me, he would look at me and go like, this girl just draws. And I mean, she draws very pretty and she draws like cute. And I don't know. I mean, I guess I'll let her go. My dad was old, like my dad was older than my mom by 20 years. So he was of a very old mentality. Later on, he told me, like way later on, he told me, well, you know, I was a little scared. I didn't know what you were gonna do. I mean, drawing your little drawings for the rest of your life. I guess you could get married, you know, and have kids and just
Seems like those have all worked out.
I don't know. And I guess that is all right, you know, but I didn't want to settle for that. I had a different idea. I wanted to pursue my dream of being having something to do with drawing. And that's why I studied graphic design, because back then it was either graphic design or architecture. And ain't no way I was going to do architecture.
Funnily enough, my dad's an architect, so same thing. He said, you can do your little drawings on the side.
To you, right?
Yeah, but go into architecture or graphic design for a career. And then if you guys can imagine, you know, we're basically high school seniors by the time we start dating.
Yeah.
And I'm telling her parents, like, we're gonna be artists and we're gonna make cartoons and we're gonna be like the Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera of animation.
And your parents are way more of like dreamers.
Yeah, they were like, baby.
My parents were more cemented in like
Reality?
Yeah, reality.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen. Like, these children are gonna wind up
homeless
and you know,
on the streets.
On the streets, yes.
I think it's every, you know, as a parent now, if my kid was like, I want to be a rock star, I think I would have that reaction. Where like, well, what are the odds? Like, how hard are you going to work to get this? No one stumbles into these things. It's a ton of work.
Yeah.
And that was basically what we figured out. So as a high school student, my father basically said, hey, what's the hardest school to get into for the thing you want to do, animation? And then back then it was Cal Arts, this school in Los Angeles, where all the Disney and Pixar directors came from, all the showrunners from Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon, they all went there. And when I tried to get in, it was like for every 350 applicants, they would take one. That's how hard it was. And so it was the best of the best of the best. And I worked for 2-3 years trying to get ready to get into that school.
Yeah. And
everybody told me you're gonna get rejected 4 or 5 years in a row. So go to a community college, get basically keep applying until you get in. And I really prepared. I did a lot of figure drawing and I did a lot of drawings that I thought was what an American school wanted to see. So I
thought they were good.
Wow. So I did it. I did like Bugs Bunny and Bart Simpson and Mickey Mouse. I did all these drawings that I thought, oh, these are animation drawings. But I also took my paintings about Mexican culture and you know, Day of the Dead and Mexican wrestling, all the things that I love, just to see if I could get into a painting school.
Yeah.
Purely for ego.
Yeah.
It was even I was smart enough to not think I could make a living
because
as a painter.
Yeah.
So I get my stuff reviewed by the head of the school back then, Jules Engel, this older Hungarian guy, and he just destroyed me. He looked at my drawings and he said, you know, these figure drawings are fine, but so what? Like, you don't come to these schools to learn how to draw. You come to these schools so we can teach you what to do with your knowledge.
Yeah.
And then he looked at my drawings, my Bugs Bunny, Mickey Mouse, and Bart Simpson, all these American things, and he said, "This is crap. A copy machine could have done this. You have no voice. You say nothing. you're not an artist. So it was shocking to hear at 17 years old, after being told by everybody, you have it.
You have the talent.
Yeah,
You have the gift.
You have the gift to have a professional look at me and just destroy me like that. And I think, honestly, looking back, those are the moments in my life where I went, well, the macho thing would have been to just walk away. But the super macho thing was, all right, I'm going to learn. I'm going to learn from this experience. So as I'm walking away, he looks at my paintings, because I accidentally left my painting portfolio. And he goes, hey, sad boy, come back. And he looks at my paintings and he goes, why did you do this? What is this stuff? And I said, well, this is stuff I love. And I started telling him a story about every painting. And he started laughing and his eyes got really big. And he said, this is great. Why did you do this? And I said, well, this is the stuff I love. And he goes, well, why did you do that other crappy stuff you showed me? I said, well, because that's the stuff I thought you wanted to see. And he said, oh, you stupid boy. He was Hungarian, right? So he talked like that. So he was like, oh, you stupid boy.
Old.
Yeah.
He was old too.
He was very old. And he goes, ah, you stupid boy. This is your voice. This is who you are. And this is what makes you you. And if this is who you are, you will do this regardless of anyone asking you to do it. So I'm letting you into the school, and you have to swear to me you'll never draw Mickey Mouse and Bart Simpson and Bugs Bunny, and you will do this crazy Mexican things that you love so much. And that was it. That was the beginning of my career. Meanwhile, Sandra is studying graphic design.
I didn't have like I mean, after my dad, after going back to my dad, after, you know, like he had to take care of 2 other girls and another girl, my younger sister that was still going, I think she was still in high school. She was like, okay, chick, you can't go to the United States to study graphic design or whatever you want to study. Find another option, see what you can find. And I was very fortunate that at the time there was a branch in Tijuana of a very prestigious school in Mexico City called Ibero. And I have to say another thing about prestigious schools in a little bit. Remind me to say something.
They're in high school though.
Yeah, but this is
Right, they're all looking at schools.
Yeah.
And I wound up going to that school because it offered graphic design. It was the only school in Tijuana that offered graphic design. And it was really awesome. It was really great. Obviously, you have teachers that strengthen what you do and others that just see you as another passing thing. But it's really up to you. I mean, we've had this conversation with Jorge about it's really up to you what you get out of the school. It's good to have the name, the prestigious name in your portfolio. But what really speaks is what you do with it. Because if your work is not good, it doesn't matter if you went to Princeton or Harvard or fancy school. It depends on what you do. You know, like you're gonna go up to Cal Arts and you're gonna be like sad boy over here with your drawings, and you're like, check out my awesome Mickey Mouse, and they're gonna be like,
you're sad.
You're sad. Go away.
I think that the biggest difference at least I noticed, I don't know what happened to you, but for me the biggest difference of college and high school was in high school it was all about getting the assignments done, and it was all about fulfilling everything that was expected from the school or you wouldn't pass, right? That was high school. And when I went to college, and especially art school and Cal Arts, they would go, if you go show up to class or you don't show up to class, we don't really care.
A lot of people went through the filter.
Yeah.
And they were like, are you serious? Like, we get to choose?
Yeah, you get to pick all your classes and you get to do all these things. But they were like, if you don't show up to class and you don't do the assignments, thank you. Thank you for spending all that money to come here and wasting it. And other students can take advantage.
Can benefit from it.
So, hey, all you lazy rich kids, thank you for coming here. You are going to benefit everybody else.
Yeah.
And that was one of the biggest, like, oh, we are, you know, if I learn, it's not on my teachers, it's on me. if I get better, it's not on my teachers are my guides, my teachers are literally the lights that will shine the way, but it really comes down to me. And in art school, they hit you with, or at least in animation, they hit you with, it takes 1,000 drawings to do a good drawing, right? And that's just a metaphor. It's basically the more you do something, it's not that it gets easier, is that you get better. And then it feels like it.
Yeah.
So if you apply that to everything, right? So for me, it was, well, I want to make little cartoons. How many shorts, animated shorts, do people do a year? Oh, well, usually they do 1 short a year. All right, I'll do 5. I'll do 5 and I'll get better. And if they give me an assignment to design a character, I'm going to do 10 and turn in only 1. I won't show all the other students because they'll hate me. But I'm basically, my way of cheating in college was I'm just going to work more than anybody. And I'm going to outwork people. And I know, especially when I started there, I knew I wasn't the most talented. And I definitely knew I was not even in the top 10 most talented people there. But I said,
Yeah, rough competition.
very rough competition.
Very rough. Yeah.
But I definitely said I can't control how much talent I'm born with, but the only thing I can control is what I do with my time. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to just work. And I remember being kind of a Machiavellian guy. Obviously, you guys are in high school, but in college, there's a lot of partying going on.
Too, yeah.
I would go to the parties and show up with beer and then leave the beer and then go work. And then basically get rid of people in the computer lab, and I would bring video games in and give them out to people so they wouldn't use the computers, so I could use the computers. So I was that guy. And then the next day I would be like, man, what a crazy party. And they were like, you weren't even there. I'm like, what do you mean? I was totally there. Yeah, I brought the video games to the party. So it was definitely one of those things that, at least for me, when you fall in love with the work, and when you get joy from the work, then you just want to do more. And if you don't love that stuff and you only love the results, that was the other big difference I learned in school. Some artists love the result. They love having finished the thing and people loving it and liking it and telling them how amazing it was.
Yeah.
And then there's other people like me who like the making of it. And then the finishing is just a bonus. But the making of it is what brings me joy.
You don't doubt yourself when you're doing it?
Of course.
See, that's what kills me. I'm in the middle of it, and I'm very I'm like walking a tightrope. I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna fall.
This is not just bad; it's the worst thing that's ever been done.
Yeah. A lot. It's like Jorge said: the more you do it, the more confidence you get. But it's all right to still feel. I mean, to be where we are at and still doubt yourself. I think that doubt never goes away, but
I just think, honestly, to me, the secret,
I think that makes you stronger and
the
better.
secret is volume. It's just doing a lot. And the more you do, the less precious it becomes.
Yeah.
The more second nature it becomes. Yeah. And one of the things, at least that I think about when I do stuff, is I go, all right, this is good enough for this.
Yeah.
And on the next one, I'll be better.
Yeah.
But for this one, I got to move on. And so finishing is so important because there are cemeteries somewhere in the world with very ambitious drawings and cartoons of people who just never finish.
We talked about that. We've been like, oh my God, can you imagine?
All the potential lost.
Like all of the stuff that's been like just put on the back burner. We have a friend.
Oh yeah.
Who's his name's Mark Murphy. He's a designer, and he wanted, I don't even know if he's still doing it or not because he has like 1 million projects, but he wanted to do a book with the sketches that no one sees of artists and designers and architects.
Oh, he's been doing those.
Yeah, and so they can see the process, you know, of
the iceberg.
But what you're saying, all the progress that has been lost, and they've only shown the finished product.
Yes.
Like you said, 1 million.
It's like social media. People only see the happy moments and the pretty moments.
They don't see when the camera falls.
Yeah, they don't see all the struggle. And I think, especially in high school, I felt so overwhelmed, and I don't know how you felt, of this reality of, oh my God, I want to be an artist and I want to do all these things. How am I going to do all these things? And my heroes have done movies and have done cartoons. And so what allowed me to sort of live that moment was go, wait a second. All my heroes were sitting in my spot one day.
Yeah.
They were all high school students.
Yep.
They were all like literally when they're born, they're just regular kids. I'm gonna study, and you guys can study this in Wikipedia. You can look it up online. Look up all your heroes and go, what was their journey?
The Wikipedia.
Yeah, like they look, yeah, look in the internets. But you start to see you start to see the path, and you go, oh, this guy went to this place, and like for example, I love SpongeBob, so I was like, oh, Steve Hillenburg, he studied marine biology, and then he, as a master's, went into animation for Cal Arts, and then after Cal Arts, he worked on Rocco's Modern Life as an art director, and then he worked his way up, and then he made SpongeBob, and you start seeing those paths, and you start going, oh.
Okay.
I can now see the little ladder, and you start seeing that no one's career just goes like this.
Right.
Everyone's career goes like this. And some people didn't even go to college. Some people went to fancy colleges. Some people went to colleges you've never heard of. The work,
Some are self-taught.
yeah,
That's
the
hilarious.
work
Yeah.
defined who they were.
Yeah.
It wasn't where they went to school. So that's a thing that I wish, looking back, I was more and more sort of aware that it's a journey, and it's a journey that's going to take a while, but it's completely worth it. It's solely on you, but you have to start the journey. And the sooner you start, the faster you'll get there.
Will you talk for a minute about what do you do when you're stuck? About, I have my own philosophy of creative block, but I'd love to know how you process it.
I'm going to be super honest. I've never had creative block.
That's not true.
I have too many ideas. That's my problem.
Yeah, that is true. His brain is like what you see behind us.
Yeah.
Behind us, it's a cacophony of color, shapes, ideas, and I think it's like trying to find your favorite toy inside your toy box, and when you finally find it, it blows up and it gets big.
I mean, I don't know if you guys know, but I'm on the autism spectrum, and so one of the things I do is I process information really fast, and I gather a lot of ideas. So one of my problems is not that I don't come up with stuff, is that I think of things and then I find myself going, oh, that's too close to blah blah. Oh, that's obviously everybody's going to know that that's blah blah. So I have to decipher how to make the idea feel unique, but not so weird that no one gets it, but not so derivative that people think I'm just ripping something off. And so I spend a lot of time trying to process, because I want to make things that are familiar, but that are different. And that's a really hard thing.
Fine line to walk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
agree.
if I'm not held back, I overdo things, and I put too much things in things, and I add too many layers. So that's another thing that I have to work on.
Well, that's why you have me.
Yeah, and I go like, and I hear some artists go, I don't make stuff for others, I make it for me. I can't afford to think that way, because the stuff we make is so expensive, and people are trusting us with literally millions of dollars to make our
They're
stuff.
not our millions of
Yeah,
dollars.
it's their millions of dollars.
But the pressure is
and
okay,
if we
there.
make a thing and it's successful, then they're happy, and then they let us make more. If we make a thing that we love, but it's not successful, then they won't give us money to make another thing. So we are very much dependent on trust to deliver something that people will like, but at the same time that we love, and at the same time that people can market and sell to people all over the world. We try to make things about Latino culture, especially I'm obsessed with making things about Mexico. And what I learned early on in my career was that if I made stuff that was only for people from Mexico, or only for people who understood Mexican culture, or only people who were familiar with the culture, we were screwed, because the audience wasn't big enough. And what I realized was, my favorite movie is Seven Samurai. It's a Japanese movie set in feudal Japan. I love Amélie, this French movie. I love City of God, this Brazilian movie.
Yeah,
those
you
movies,
found the common denominator.
The common denominator in all the work was, these stories are universal. And so Amélie, for anybody who hasn't seen it, it's beautiful French movie about this girl who is lonely but brings joy and to others, and that's what gives her joy. And in the end, she's rewarded with love.
Yeah.
That could take place in Colorado. That could take place in LA. That could take place any part of the world.
Because there's freaky cute girls everywhere.
It's a universal story. Seven Samurai. Seven Samurai is literally 7 dying warriors team up to defend ungrateful farmers from bandits in feudal Japan.
Yeah.
That could take place in the Mexican Revolution. That could take place today, anywhere in the world. So these stories are universal, and the culture is the canvas, but the story painted on top is very universal. So when you have to explain the culture to somebody, and when we would pitch stuff and they would go, I don't understand any of these references, and I start telling them what the references are, then they would go, oh, so this isn't for us. This is for only people.
And you go,
right. So now we go, so for example, Mine and the Three, for anybody who hasn't seen it, when I pitch it, I would go, hey, this is a story about this princess who's going to go on this quest to fight these ancient gods, and she has to gather these warriors, and then in the end, she sacrifices herself to save humanity. And they would go, whoa, that sounds amazing. Oh, by the way, it takes place in Mesoamerica.
You said it was Lord of the Rings with brown people.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings with brown people. That was the pitch.
Don't lie. That was his first pitch. You didn't go all like philosophical and stuff. You went directly to the point. Well, let me say how I got there.
Yeah.
How I reboot.
Creative block.
Yeah, creative block. I really like where you were going with that, by the way.
Thank you.
I love it. Yeah,
Thank you.
you're such a good storyteller.
Yeah.
Thank you. So mine isn't as complex as Jorge's. Mine is more like I'll be designing, and there will come a point where I'll be like, this is just not looking right. And I begin to get down on myself. That's the first thing that happens. And I go, you know what? I have to disconnect. So I walk, or I go somewhere, or I just try to do the opposite of what I'm doing. And it's hard because you keep on thinking about it, but before you know it, you kind of start disconnecting. You start kind of like looking up, and you start looking where we live. There's a lot of trees. There's a lot of greenery, and I just start looking up and I start seeing the color combinations. It's inevitable. I think that as a person that works in design, you're constantly being like, your eye just goes to color and shape and form and composition. So believe it or not, you guys know, like you're walking around and you see this lovely piece of rust that's sticking out of a wall, and you go, wow, that's a really cool texture, and it's next to this like hot pink, and you're like, dang, I didn't know that rust could look so good against a hot pink. And you're like, oh, I'm gonna put that away in my little archives. Before you know it, you're building this like small portfolio in your head, and you're completely disconnected from the project that you're doing. By the time you get back, believe it or not, you're rewired and you're like refreshed and ready to go. At least that works for me. The other thing that really helps is having my library of like folders on my desktop or on our cloud. And I keep different folders there in reference for, it's inspiration folders. And I go in and I'm constantly picking or getting inspired by different things that I see, references, not only of designers, but of just random pictures I find online, or random pictures that I collected around the block or on our travels, or even like sentences or phrases or stories that might inspire me to like, I go, okay, yeah, that's cool. That inspires me. And that usually does it. For me, it's just disconnecting.
Awesome.
I answered your question.
Great answers. Atlas, you had a question. Be loud.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yay!
I had a question about the matcha thing. I was wondering if, because of that, you started to relate to Manolo. Because of that?
Yeah. It's so funny you picked that up, but basically Book of Life is about that story, right? If you guys break down Book of Life, it's a sort of reconceptualizing the myth of machismo as toxic masculinity and noble masculinity, right? So Manolo is the only character in that movie without a mustache, so he's different. Everybody in that world can fight, and by the way, Manolo can fight, and Manolo can bullfight, but he chooses not to. He's the greatest bullfighter in the world, and he chooses not to do it, not because he can't, but because he thinks it's wrong and he believes it's wrong. And he wants to be an artist, and he has to convince everybody that that's a worthy thing. And he literally in the movie has to die in order to prove himself. And I think, for me, that was the message of being an artist, having to convince your village, having to convince your family, having to convince everybody.
Huge. Yeah.
And then the other big one is forgiveness. Forgiveness in that movie is a big part, and I think being an artist, a big part of being an artist is forgiving yourself and forgiving others for not believing in you and forgiving society for not valuing that idea. I've witnessed it with a lot of artists that I talk to, especially students, especially first generation artists in the Latino community and in other communities, where their parents go, we came to this country, we risked so much, and you're telling me you want to risk it all to become an artist?
Especially in males.
Especially in male, well, and females.
But males, because there's still that ideology
Right.
of you are going to be,
Yeah,
you're going to be the sole breadwinner for
you're
your
going to
house.
provide for people. And
Yeah.
then the other big one is we, especially in the Latino community and you know, specifically in our generation, there weren't a lot of people that you could point to and go, Dad, I'm going to be just like Juan Rodriguez. Like, there wasn't a lot of examples in animation, and there wasn't a lot of examples in the arts. So it was a deeper argument. So I always joke that the first wall you have to climb over to become an artist in Latin America and in Latino artists in the US is at home. You have to convince your family. And that's very, very, very tough.
I like it.
But that's basically what Book of Life, that was what Book of Life was really about.
Yeah.
So good insight that you caught that.
Yeah, and great response. It just, like, the idea just went out of my head. I hate it when that happens. Oh, I know what I was gonna ask. Some of my students are interested in being animators. What skills would you encourage them to develop? What software? I teach a lot of software, but I'm funny about software because sometimes you have to go learn it over the weekend because it changes all the time.
Oh yeah.
What skills would you encourage them to build?
I think specifically for animation, even if you might not use it later on, because if you become a computer animator, you might never need to draw ever in your life. Drawing, figure drawing, fundamentals, all that stuff is so important. And I always say it's better to know it and not need it than need it and not know it. Ooh. It's just part of who you are.
I like that.
And I definitely think one of the, people go, well, what do I need in my portfolio? All the information's out there. If you go to Twitter, you go to Tumblr, you go to Instagram, and literally look up people who just got into animation schools, and they're all posting their portfolios. Mm-hmm. And so if you look at your drawings and you look at the drawings of people getting into school and you go, whoa, they're way better than me, that doesn't mean you should give up. That just means get to work. Start drawing more, practicing more, surround yourself, find online groups of people who are like-minded, and start drawing together, start drawing each other, and getting really comfortable with drawing. And then as much as you consume media and anime and cartoons and video games, at some point you also have to make stuff. Because knowing all these things is just not enough.
Yeah.
You have to, a balanced diet of making and watching, I think, is very healthy. If you only make things and you never watch anything, I don't think that's healthy either. But I see a lot of people who see a lot of stuff, they just don't do a lot of stuff, and it shows in their work.
I have to add something to that. When you said animation, there's a lot of stuff that you can do in it. I mean, I'm not sure if you're talking about the actual movement of the characters or if you're talking about the design of the character
design,
or storyboarding, because everyone always thinks in animation only those the top one is almost always character design. But there's more, right? There's storyboard and
Background
and
design,
background design.
color.
Like think outside the box, you know, because in the industry, we're always looking for other people. Character design is the holy grail. Everyone's always looking for that. And if you're not doing in Jorge's situation was, you know, I really like my style, I really like my stuff, and I want to do my own things, and that's the way I'm going to get my characters to function. Like, I'm not going to be able to give the people at Kung Fu Panda what they need because that's not my style. My style is my style, right? So, as I was saying, the coveted position is character design. There's people that actually design the characters, and there's people that design underneath the people sometimes to continue helping them.
Yeah, the mouth shapes,
The mouth shapes, the charts, and the turnarounds and all that stuff. But going back to what we were saying, also think about the storyboards. It's a lot of fun. Also go about talking about the backgrounds. And then the other positions, which maybe you guys are still in high school, but it's time to talk about it because I think this is a good place to start. There's also like the production part of it.
Producers, coordinators,
executives, women like directors. Like,
yeah, most line producers, which are basically the people in charge of figuring out how to spend the money and the time and hire the people. Most line producers that I've ever worked with are women.
Yeah. And it's really cool as an added bonus that if you're there, I know it's like, oh God, but I want to do art. Yeah. But then you're the people that are making it happening in the long run. Like you're bringing in those new
and then you run the studio.
And you run the studio and you get to decide and like really stand up for what projects you want to come in. So you become a spearheader or a person that carries the baton. Yeah. Spielberg. So yeah, so think about that, you know, also. And as a final thought right there, it's really cool when you get a unicorn. And a unicorn is a person that knows their stuff in animation, okay, and is also an executive. Because it's very clear sometimes in the industry when you see that person didn't study design or art.
Or doesn't know.
Or doesn't know. They're just there because they know how to work the system. They don't know the sensibility of an artist. So when you get these two like Voltron powers coming together, you get a good project, and it's amazing.
It's awesome. I tell students that, just a second, Atlas, I tell students right at the beginning of school that that when they say they want to be a designer or they say they want to be an animator, it's like saying, I'm going to med school and I'm going to be a doctor. What kind? Yep. There's a lot of different veins, right? It's a very broad world. Atlas, question. Loud.
Oh, is there a specific character that you like doodling on your papers or just draw a lot because you like them?
What was the question?
Is there a specific character that you doodle a lot or that you tend to draw because you really like them?
My kid, my son.
Yeah, you draw him a lot.
I draw him a lot. And Jorge.
Yeah, I get drawn a lot.
He's really fun to draw. Yeah, although, yeah.
I'm obsessed with drawing, I think, Mickey Mouses. I just draw Mickey Mouse.
Evil Mickey Mouses, and like
variations of Mickey.
Buff Mickey Mouses.
Macho Mouse and Greedy Mouse and Money Mouse. All these bootleg Mickey Mouses.
Yeah.
And then for some reason, which one day I will figure out, skulls. So I just draw skulls all the time.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
The villain in Maya and the Three, Miklan, has 666 skulls on his character design.
Oh, nice.
And I drew every one of them.
Oh, you did. You copy paste.
Yeah, a lot of copy paste.
I reveal the truth.
Yeah.
Okay, so we do a project in our class called Inspiration Family Tree. And I make my students come up with people who inspire them. And then they have to do research to find out who their inspirations are. So that's my question to each of you. Can you give us names of three people who inspire you, artists or designers or work that you like, or
Are they dead?
They could be alive or dead.
Oh.
Wow, we're already killing people.
I know, I'm already killing people.
You don't have to be dead.
All right, I'll go to give you time to think.
No. We'll go back and forth. How's
All
that?
right, so my first one is there's an artist named Sergio Aragonés. Sergio Aragonés grew up in Spain, left Spain because of the Civil War, so grew up in Mexico, Mexico City. He studied architecture, but he is a cartoonist who worked for Mad Magazine, this very famous cartoonist magazine, and didn't speak English. And so all his cartoons didn't have words, and they spoke universally. And he used to draw on the sides of the cartoons. So if you guys look him up, he is incredible. He's probably one of my biggest influences. I met him when I was 13 years old, and he kind of sat me down and told me, "You got to go to school. Like what we do is a career." And Betsy, literally, he said it's like being a lawyer and a doctor. It's the same amount of work. But we get to be kids forever, and that stayed with me forever. So that's my first one. He's like 86. He's still around, but I think he influenced my generation.
He does this really cool thing during Comic-Con. I don't know if you guys have gone to Comic-Con. Raise of hands if you guys have gone to Comic-Con.
They're in Colorado, so they might have a convention.
We have our own. I don't.
Yeah, like
I've been to one.
In San Diego, there's the Comic-Con, and Sergio always goes to it. And after the Comic-Con is over and they shut everything down, there's a hall that just gets full of people because Sergio is drawing on the spot. Like
it's called the quick draw.
It's called the quick draw, and everyone, it's like tradition.
People yell stuff, and he'll just
draw it.
It's kind of amazing.
Boom, 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 and he still does it. It's insane
awesome.
at his 80-something years of age.
All right, who's
you?
What?
You're one of my inspirations. Yeah, I know it's corny. I know, but it is true. Like I really think that I love the fact that you're always taking risks. I've seen you grow as an artist, and whereas you still stick to the basic meat and potatoes of it with your skulls and your Day of the Dead and your Mexico and everything, but you sprinkle it with a lot of new things. You're like always thinking outside the box. Your color sense is fantastic, and your shirt says it. He's wearing his own painting, by the way.
I know.
And it's Bart Simpson, which I was told not to draw.
Yes, he's very proud of his artwork.
Hey, if I'm not proud of it,
I know. I lack in that. See, I'm a very like, oh, don't show it. Don't show my art, please. I'm very like, I mean, even the way we're dressed right now and we're angled in composition is like, like I have a lot to learn still. I know. It's like this. So yeah, like you're one of my main inspirations.
All right, my next one is obviously you.
No es cierto.
Thank you.
Mentiroso.
So one of the things that I found really intriguing about.
You're just saying this because I said that.
Of course.
Oh!
One of the things that I found really intriguing about Sandra was, so she studied graphic design in Mexico, and when she came to the U.S. No. When she came to the U.S. and she started competing, because it's a competition, competing with other artists and other designers, you had really low self-esteem as an artist, and she was very insecure, and you put this on yourself where you said, "Oh, the only reason I'm getting this job is because I'm married to you." So she put all those things on herself, these weights, she was raised Catholic, so she had all this guilt about who she was. And then instead, macho or super macho, instead of letting that stuff weigh her down, it seemed like she took those things and used them to make herself better and stronger.
Oh.
And it got to the point where she started doing incredible work. And obviously, I'm like her mom in that I tell her it's incredible, right? Like when your mom tells you your stuff is amazing, you're like, "Well, it's my mom. Of course she's going to tell me that." So she stopped listening to me a long time ago. But when other people started saying it, she, instead of going, "Thank you," she would go, "No, it's not good enough." And she used it to fuel herself. And eventually Sandra won the first ever character design Emmy for a Latina artist, working on El Tigre. And I remember that night, she was really excited. And I remember her going, I'm still not there, right? Getting the top prize, and to her it was like, I'm still not there. When we worked on the Book of Life, she again did incredible work, and she won another award for the Annies for character design of the Book of Life. People get her characters tattooed worldwide. People dress up as her characters, and again she went, I'm not there yet. I need to get better. So every time success has come for her, instead of going, all right, I did it,
I'm a masochist.
she goes, I'm not there yet. This is a sign that I'm on the right path, but I'm not there yet. And so I've always admired that.
Wow. Oh, that's nice.
See? Take that.
It's a little masochistic, but yeah, that's really nice.
I challenge students frequently when they're like, I'm a perfectionist. I'm like, okay, here's your job. I want you to go to the local art museum. You find the perfect piece and you write a paper about it. Because
Yeah.
there are.
I'm doing that tomorrow, Miss Tuma.
Are you?
I'll have
Good.
my paper in tomorrow.
And by the way, I agree with you, Betsy. Perfectionism is the artist's biggest enemy. If
Yeah.
you're like, I can't do this until I'm perfect, you'll never finish.
I think a deadline is really good.
I think that I personally believe speed and consistency beat talent.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I think talent is great, but it's not the thing that matters, right? It's like maybe getting the #1 starting position, but still, if you don't keep your foot on the gas, it's not going to get you to the finish line.
Exactly.
And in art school, the most talented people I met there were the laziest, and they're the people who are doing the least now. So that was
Think they got cocky?
they got super cocky. It's
Yeah.
human nature.
Yeah. Okay. Sandra, who's your second? Who's your next?
Oh,
Your third.
no, this is my second. You
Oh,
went
yeah, yeah, yeah.
first.
Okay.
So my second one is going to be obviously Mary Blair.
Good.
Aw.
Mary Blair, for you guys that don't know, was a designer that worked at Disney Studios in the 1940s?
40s and 50s.
Yeah, 40s and 50s.
50s and
1950s.
Yeah, just look up Mary Blair and you'll be.
And she was a
it's incredible.
humongous influence for the look of everything that was going on. And the cool thing was that she was one of the most like well-known
And respected
artists of that
Female.
of the time, and she was a female. And she was like Walt's right-hand woman. And she designed Small World. She designed like conceptual art for painting too, for Cinderella, for Peter Pan, like all with
Sleeping
wash
Beauty.
and acrylic, Sleeping Beauty. Like her color palette was beautiful. Her design sense was gorgeous. Very
She did
simple.
Golden Books.
She did Golden Books like I Can Fly. Like there's a lot of elements there that you can take and you can use them now and really like the magnitude, you can make it even bigger, you know, like, oh, that's how she got that texture. Oh, look at that composition. It's so simple, yet it's so complex. So I really like the way she works.
And then my third one is Guillermo del Toro.
Yes.
He's a huge, humongous influence, and the biggest. Honestly, when I thought I worked really hard until I met him, and then I got to hang out with him, and
Yeah,
I
it's
was
crazy.
and I was shocked.
Yeah.
He made me feel like I was lazy. And one of the big things I love about him is that he is someone who he couldn't be the more geeky and more nerdy, and then he couldn't be more artsy. So those are two things that when I grew up, I thought were different universes, right? It was, he loves comic books and you know, old Japanese monster movies and all this like almost like pop culture stuff. But then he loves poetry and opera and paintings, classic art. And if you look at his work, it's a mix of those things. Filmography is biography, right? That's basically your art. When people ask about your style, it's everything you like and it's everything you don't like because you don't include it. So that was something that really, for me, it was like, well, I love Picasso and I love Basquiat, but I also love Tex Avery and I love you know, classic cartoons and I love old anime. And Guillermo was like, great, how are you gonna mix those things?
Yeah.
So that allowed me to see the full spectrum of, you can take every influence, video games and opera and the mural in the butcher shop down the street, like, and make it all yours.
We talk a lot about what we like, but I also have students try and focus on what they don't like. I think that's as informative and maybe sometimes more than the things that you love. So I'm always like, if they're like, I don't like it, I'm like, oh, tell me more, lean in, let's talk about that. Because I think it's
that kind of
such a
applies
growth
to
zone.
like what we say with Jorge, like there's a lot of good movies out there, and then there's really bad ones. And you're like, ooh, I don't want to watch that. But sometimes it's good to watch them so you can learn, why don't I like them? Or, and in the long run, you go, oh, maybe I can use that to my advantage, you know?
Or why are bad movies beloved? Certain bad movies become cult hits.
Yeah.
Or like, why is bad art loved by, in my opinion, because beauty is in the eye of the beholder. That's really like cliche, but it is. I mean, it depends on the person, where one person could be like, man, that movie was great. The other one's like, what are you talking about? that was just like the worst movie in the world, and everyone says so. But this one person in the entire earth says that was great, you know? Who are we to say it's not?
Yep, exactly. Hey, Sandra, who's your number 3?
My number 3, there's so many, but right now I just thought of someone contemporary. Right now, here's another thing that all you whippersnappers, young bloods, and young people can do. You can also tap into illustration in books. And right now I'm tapped at right now I'm in a particular stage in my life where I can actually do that. I can dabble in it, right? So I have a lot of inspiration in that, and one of them is Christian Robinson. Christian Robinson is an amazing artist who
Kids books, right?
yes, kids books, and it looks like it's like he does do things like with Canson paper. It's like a paper that has like texture, and then he paints on top of it, and then he cuts it out to the shapes that he wants. He's won multiple awards. His stuff is completely animatable. Like he's very true to his heritage. He's African American. So like a lot of his books are about him growing up in the city with his grandma. He's on Instagram and he's constantly doing tutorials. He has no shame of showing you his process. And I love that. I love that in a person, because it shows that they're humble and that they're willing to share the behind the scenes. There's nothing worse than like finding out that the person that you really looked up to is like very like, no, I'm not going to show you the magic behind it, you know? And you're like, okay, well, maybe they do it for a reason, because they want to keep the illusion going or the magic going, and they're in the right to do it. But it's so cool to find out like how they do it, right? And I had a mentor called Rafael Lopez who went to Art Center to study illustration, and he just said, this is how I do it. There's no magic, and it's all about you. So what you want to put down on the paper, put your idea on the paper, but these are the techniques. And that's what Christian Robinson does.
I love that. It's what I love about teaching design as opposed to teaching like math, right? In a design class, we're like, here's my solution. How could I make it better? In a math class, we're like, I'm doing it like this. I love that. I love the like out there. Atlas, do you have another question?
I do.
Ask away.
Since you've become animators, what is a pet peeve you see in other animated films?
Pet peeve you see in other animated films?
Pet peeve in design or animated or any?
Yeah.
Oh, there's so many.
Something that bothers you.
Okay, one of them. We want to take turns?
You go first.
Oh God, there's when one of them is the eyebrow. This.
Yeah.
When they do that, like for expression.
It's called the DreamWorks.
It's called the DreamWorks
poster. Yeah.
And like they're all like one eyebrow goes like this. They're like, like do it. Like
this is weird.
The cocky pose, and that I was like, there's a million ways you can convey that feeling, and you choose the cocky pose. Don't do that. Don't do that. It drives me nuts.
I think for me, the big pet peeve I'm having now is, and I don't know why they started this, but this idea that there should be no villains, that the villains are
in the end
inside of us, or that it's a family member's ideal that
bridge.
I'm like, this is as much as wonderful as that seems. Like, I like an antagonist, and I love movies with an antagonist that is a reflection of the hero in a different light. So my new pet peeve was, where are the villains? Where are the
good
beloved villains? And if you really think about the good movies you love, they usually have a villain.
And nowadays, I mean, if you actually see that villain where he's talking about, it's like refreshing. It's like, where did that concept come from?
Or they have to explain why the villain's bad.
Yeah. Like, this is his backstory. He didn't get candy when he was little.
Yeah, it's like the Joker. Now we find out he hated clowns. And it's like, no.
Okay, here's I think sadly it has to be our last question because these poor kids have to get on their buses to go back to their high schools.
Yeah.
Bless their hearts. Yesterday was the first anniversary of ChatGPT, and in the last year, AI has been like the thing that has freaked out or intrigued every artist I know.
Yep.
What are your thoughts?
I think AI can basically reference things that exist and represent them to you, right? So it's almost like a robot that can copy and represent. Artists, in my opinion, as long as we keep creating things and we keep the ideas flowing, we're going to be okay. But if you're dependent on a technical skill, then AI can do that very easily. And it's not worth competing. Like, if you love to do realistic car renderings, AI can do that stuff. It's like painting and photography, right? When photography started, people were like, well, that's the end of painting. No, we don't need painting anymore. Guess what happened? That's when painting exploded because people painted things that a camera couldn't capture. People started painting different ways of looking at things, emotions, basically stylized worlds. So I think for artists, AI is going to take realism and take things that are really obvious and do them really well, but it still will require human creativity to do things. And the more stylized and the more unique you are, in a weird way, the more prepared you are for the new world. But pretending it's not there and fighting it, I think are losing battles.
Yeah.
I frequently say, I don't think AI is going to take your job. I think somebody who knows how to use it will.
Yeah.
I think that, but I don't think AI is ever going to be capable of saying, let's make a show about under the sea, but we're going to make the main character a yellow kitchen sponge and he's going to live in a pineapple. Because that's just not logical.
The pieces aren't going to come together.
It's like when autotune happened and when digital audio happened, people are like, we'll never need to play guitars again. We'll never need to play the drums again. People will never need to learn how to sing. It's like, no, that didn't happen.
I'm not the same mindset as you. And just to like finish up, but I'm also of the mindset that we're always evolving and we're always, this AI is another step. Like Jorge said, photography was another step, right? I think that what could possibly
drawing in computers.
When we started
telling
our artists, you got to start doing your poses on the way,
drawing on the tablet,
and you have to start doing your storyboards on the tablet. They were like, what? So I think that what's going to happen is that somewhere along the way, there's going to be some sort of meshing of AI with artists, and we're going to use it as a tool. We're going to use it as a tool. Hopefully, there's going to be a kind of understanding and a way to kind of dominate this. What would you call it? This beast.
So get comfortable with it. Start using it, and then draw on top of it, paint on top of it.
Use it to your advantage.
Yeah, use it to your advantage.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have any last parting advice for these kiddos?
My last advice is party hard, but work harder. Go.
I like it. I'll back you up.
Thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure. You guys, can we give them a round of applause? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a fantastic rest of your day.
You
You
too.
guys
Have a
too.
great
Oh,
weekend.
I have one more question. What are you working on now? What are we watching for next?
We are doing a new movie for Netflix, but it's not coming out till 2029. We're doing a sequel to Maya and the Three that hasn't been announced, that takes place in present day Los Angeles for 2028. And then I'm doing my first ever adult animated show, sort of like Rick and Morty style, but with crazy Mexican wrestlers. So those are the three things we're working on. Oh, and I'm doing don't tell anybody, I'm doing a Simpsons Treehouse of Terror intro for next year.
Nice. Hey, and can we buy that shirt somewhere?
I believe it's online.
Yeah, it is. How do we find it, Jorge?
Just go with my Instagram or my Twitter, and there's a link tree, and there's a link for all the t-shirts.
Sweet, will do. Thank you, you guys. Have a great day.
Have a good one. Bye, Betsy.
Bye.